If you remember that famous song, Sarjo Takraye.
Yeah, Dil Duba Jaye. Yes.
So it's all about you sing and get people to come and do tel malish with you.
Correct. Yeah.
Right? So they were kind of singing and selling to you, which is what we've been doing, which is to sell something. You sing a song, you crack a joke, you tell an emotional story. Apparently this ad ran. Couple of months later, there was some newspaper report in Punjab Kesari or somewhere that 3 kids were spotted in some bus stand saying they're running away from home because the mummy is not making jalebi.
Jalebi.
I got a whiff of the change in 1979 when I joined Rediffusion because at that time, Kamlesh Pandey was a copywriter and Arun Kale used to sit together.
Yes.
And Kamlesh was a hardcore Hindi writer.
speaking. Yeah.
Hindi writer.
Hindi writer.
In fact, we used to make a joke, this Kamlesh fellow thinks in Hindi, writes in English.
Okay.
Right?
Hello and welcome to A Century of Stories India, brought to you by IDFC First Bank, always you first, now recognized by Forbes among the world's best banks of 2025. I'm your host, Kunal Vijayakar. Now, here's a question. When you think of history, what comes to mind first? A school textbook? A comic book? Or maybe an Amul ad? Or a Bollywood scene? In this episode, we explore how Indian advertising began, and joining me is the perfect guest to talk about it. Ambi Parameswaran, ad man, author, and above all, observer of everything India buys, believes, and remembers. Together, we're going to decode how India's collective memory has been shaped by branding, ads, jingles, by pop culture, and by the way we choose to look back. So, Ambi, I'm looking forward to a very, very exciting conversation with you on a subject that is very close to my heart, advertising.
Thank you. First, thank you, Kunal, for inviting me on the show. I'd love to be here and love to talk about my favorite topic,
Advertising.
about which I've written multiple articles and books and
12
stuff like that.
books, I believe.
Yeah, 12, and I think one book was specifically on advertising called
Advertising.
Nawab Nude Noodles,
Okay.
India through 50 years of advertising. So,
There you go.
fair amount of research went into that book, and I'd love to talk about.
When you look at the advertising of the 1940s and the 50s, was it far more hard selling, where then slowly you started going more rational, emotional, and then again you see, because of I don't know what reason, or maybe people are changing, you start again selling hard. Do you see a sort of shift in the way people consume ads and understand ads from, say, the 40s to today?
I think advertising goes through its phases, right? I mean, so what you said, early days was probably purely telling people, this is a toothpaste, it will make your teeth white,
Okay.
right? And then it said, look, making white is common, so let's talk of fresh breath. Then fresh breath became the common known. Let's talk of romantic interest. So you
Yeah.
brought emotional content.
You can
into
attract
it.
a girl
Yeah, you
because
can
your
attract
breath
a
is
girl,
good.
fresh breath, energy, all that kind of stuff. And then now we are moving to a stage where everyone is into clicking, right? So what's your cost per click? So we have moved from brand building to what is called performance marketing.
Okay, so if I was to ask you, what were the tricks or ploys or methods of communication? Like you said, emotional is one, comedy is another, straight facts is a third. How would you say, what are the most sort of effective way of advertising to get attention and to convince? Does it depend upon the kind of brand it is? Does it depend upon the competition that the brand is facing at that point of time? How would you, in a sort of friendly way, explain to us how the mind of an advertising person works when he's given a brand to advertise?
So Kunal, you've been in advertising, So there is no one formula, right? So like you said, what theme I will take will depend on the brand, the life stage of the brand. If it's a new brand, I need to tell more about the brand. It'll also depend on the consumer. If it's a teenage consumer, I don't want to tell a teenager some long emotional stuff. I'm going to excite them, have fun with them. Also, what is the competitive set? As everyone is cracking jokes, I should not be cracking jokes.
Correct.
Right? So sometimes I want to do a comparison, right? Because I know that I need to drive I am slightly better than my competition, but if I magnify it, consumer will come to me. So I do comparison advertising. So you do.
Or I may not be better than my consumer, yet I'll magnify something.
Yeah, but I magnify something and, so try and do something. So it depends on what is the brand, what is the consumer, what is the product category. In FCB, we had this interesting grid, which is a high involvement, low involvement thinking and feeling. So product like cars are in the quadrant, which is high involvement thinking.
Correct.
Right? Whereas fashion garments could be in high involvement, but it's feeling. I can't go and tell them, it's
viscose fabric.
Yeah, viscose fabric, which is woven with care. No one's going to interested. They're going to look at design. They're going to look at style. So it depends on all that, right? Invariably, if everyone is doing one thing, you try and do something somewhat different. So you stand out.
Amul butter hoarding after 70 years or 60 years or whatever, it's still running.
Yeah.
What are the new advertising landmarks that have happened which we remember? Why do you think that all these great brands and their advertising, some brands are no longer there also,
I think, brands like Nirma, Vicco, even Lijjat, they got into our collective memory because they are belonging to the Doordarshan days. When the whole country used to sit and watch Ramayana and Mahabharata.
There was nothing else to watch.
Right?
Yeah.
And nothing else to watch. And it all went into our head. And then we used to sing, Nirma, washing powder, Nirma, or Vajranti, Vicco Vajranti. Everyone used to sing those songs. But today we have too many media, too much diversion, too many things happening. So I don't think we can expect that kind of memorability with the modern campaigns, which is why brand building is so much tougher today. Because those days, Doordarshan, your job is done. All you have to do is go and sit in Mandi House, so you get a slot into Chayagi, Chitrahar, Hindi feature film, and then your job is done. Once you get the slot, your job is done.
Correct.
Then it became not just Doordarshan, you needed Z, Star, Sony, your job is done. But now consumers' attention is, across so many media. So if you were to today go and ask consumers, what tagline do you remember of the last 5 years? In fact, I'm working on something with my book, saying last 10 years, what are the most memorable campaigns? It's difficult. Maybe Share the Load of Ariel comes to mind, which is, 15 years old now. But if you talk of something right now, the last 2-3 years, what do you remember? I don't think so. I don't think there's anything which is going in because there is attention deficit. The old ads had the benefit of repetition, whether it is washing powder Nirma, or Tandurusti ki raksha karta hai life boy, or Atali, Batali, Amul, right?
Yeah.
All those are part of our memory. But today's youngsters, or dood, right?
Yes.
Part of our memory. But today, no. Today the attention is shifted with very, everyone is into whatever, goldfish, right? 3.8 seconds or 4 seconds or whatever it is. So campaigns don't have that longevity anymore. Good old days, we used to take an ad and run it for 2 years. And then we do a 30-second, 20-second cut down and run it 2 years. Now, campaigns are being planned for every 3 months, often 1 month. Right? Every month there's a new campaign coming out, which makes the job of the brand team that much more dangerous because every month you change the campaign, your brand is going to look very confusing.
Advertising was all conceived in the copywriter's room, all English-speaking copywriters, talking to a country which a very minority of them thought and spoke like the copywriters who were writing the advertising, which changed drastically up till now. But how do you see that change where we started, it was extremely westernized. Even the thought process for selling was westernized. The ads were all in English. The jingles were all rock music or classical opera. And how do you see the change to becoming truly Indian in our thinking and advertising? When did it happen? And
I was discussing this with an IAS officer a few days ago, saying that, look, we are the 5th largest economy, but then we still have poverty, right? The bottom 20% is still poverty. So he had an interesting point. He said, look, when we got independence, only 17% of India was above the poverty line. 83% were poor. We were a poor country. So advertising then was aimed at the rich people. So as a result, it was in English. And the heritage came from the Britishers who used to run the ad agencies. They used to train copywriters, used to write good quality English. So advertising was largely in English newspapers. Advertising was written in English. The copywriter used to type it out in their little old little Remington typewriters and tear out the copy sheet, give it to the art
department.
director to kind of visualize it. If you remember, going back to America, it was actually in the 1940s or 50s when Doyle Dane Bernbach broke the wall. Earlier, copywriters used to sit on one floor.
Absolutely correct.
And the copy sheets used to go down to the bottom floor for the art directors to lay it out. But he said, no, art and copy will sit together. So early advertising was all English dominated. You're part of it. Theatre group used to dominate, speak very good English. Many of them came from theatre.
All came from theatre.
And they could actually go and charm a client by acting it out. I like Padam C. Gerson. You could go and act out a story in front of the client, and the client used to get so mesmerized, he'll approve the advertising. So that was English, very English, right? Advertising written in English, everyone spoke English. I got a whiff of the change in 1979 when I joined Rediffusion, because at that time, Kamlesh Pandey was a copywriter and Arun Kale used to sit together.
Yes.
And Kamlesh was a hardcore Hindi writer.
Speaking. Yeah. Hindi writer.
In fact, we used to make a joke, this Kamlesh fellow thinks in Hindi, writes in English.
Okay.
Right? That was the beginning. Kamlesh started that. He started writing funny scripts.
He went on to write movies.
Yeah, he wrote Tezab. Right?
Tezab, he wrote, yes.
And then later, this trend gathered momentum. See, that time, advertising used to attract only the boys from St. Xavier's and St. Stephen's.
Yeah.
And then as advertising became more and more popular, it started attracting people from smaller towns. Kamlesh being one, and of course, Piyush and Prasoon and Balki, all these guys came in and they changed the complexion of advertising. So advertising is no longer English driven. It is Hindi. It is conceived in Hindi, written in Hindi, presented in Hindi.
It's Indian driven.
And it's Indian.
Yeah,
it's become more and more. So as a result, what has happened today? Advertising has to appeal to a larger number of people who live in small towns. You can no longer do that. So I still miss my Morning Times of India in 1979 and 80, which used to have those wonderful ads, copywritten by Christopher Rosario's copy and Kamlesh Pandey's copy, Mohammad Khan's copy, Frank Simois's
copy, yes.
Right, wonderful ads. Used to love. In fact, we used to read the ad more than the news.
Yeah.
Right. Today ads are just sale ads. Right? Wonderful ads, but they are gone. Today it's all Indian language. It's more of an Indian idiom, and which is good for the country.
So which in your memory were the first, I wouldn't say one ad, but the first few ads which broke this Western colonial English charp and sort of made this is our ad, our Indian ad, which was one of the first ads that you remember?
Difficult to name one, but probably Hamara Bajaj, kind of had a very Indian rootedness to it, and it had a lot of Indian symbolism to it, and it made us all feel very good. And the other ad which brought Hinglish into mainstream, Hinglish is very interesting, right? It's a mix of Hindi, English. The person who actually started writing in this Hinglish style was Devyani Chauba, who wrote for, Star and Style, right?
Yeah.
So she wrote it, and then Chauba Day picked it up in Stardust. In advertising, the early campaign used Hinglish was the Humko Binis Mangta.
Okay.
Read my lips.
Yeah.
I love Uncle Chips.
Yes.
That was one of the early campaigns.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Dood 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 had literally one line in Hindi, one line in English. So these are the kind of landmark campaigns which kind of were more rooted in the Indian idiom, right? About the country, right?
And then Amul Butter, which is probably the oldest running campaign in the country right now.
Kunal, Amul is and I talk about Amul even in international forums, people wonder how it's being done, because I tell them, look, Amul agency is the same. They've been handling this business for the last 40, 50, 60 years.
Correct.
And very often, the client doesn't even see the ad before it goes up on the hoarding. The client sees it the next day.
Yeah.
Total freedom to the agency.
Yeah.
So people say, how do they allow it? They allow it because they have trust. Because they know probably Sylvie and now Rahul is as worried about brand Amul, they will not do something wrong. So, having worked in advertising, one of the big fear which you have is when you present something to a client, and if your client is the kind of client who will approve anything you present, you better present good stuff.
And your responsibility becomes larger.
100%. So when you go to a client, you take 3 alternatives, and then I ask the team which is going, say, which one would you prefer? Say, option A. Say, why are you taking option B and C? No, they can shoot it down. So sorry, don't take option B and C, take option A.
Yeah.
Right. be ready. If the client picks option B,
You'll have to go
you
with
should
it.
have run with it.
You'll have to go with
Then
it.
you
yes.
take both,
Yeah.
right? That's the level of trust Amul has with its agencies, saying, look, you recommend it, go ahead. You don't even need to show it to us.
Yeah.
Right? This is amazing. I don't think it exists anywhere in the world.
No, and you're right, because I've worked on the campaign. I used to write the Amul butter hoardings at one point of time. And Dr. Kurian, who ran Amul in all those years, has, even when the hoarding has gotten borderline controversial and has faced flack from government or parliament, Dr. Kurian has stood behind the advertising agency and his advertising, which is rare. It doesn't happen.
That happens. So, in fact, I mean, just to talk a little bit, we can keep talking about Dr. Kurian, but there's an interesting story about this Dara film, which is one of my favorite films, about this little kid who's seen sitting in a railway station. There is an old man wearing a khaki uniform walking down, and the little kid and the old man looks at him and says, "Bablu, idhar baithe ho?" And the little kid says, "Ramu kaka, घर छोड़ के भाग रहा हूँ." क्या? मम्मी ने बहुत गुस्सा किया. So then the old man Ramu Kaka says, लेकिन मम्मी तो जलेबी बना रही है. So he says, jalebi? The next thing you see, the little kid is sitting on the old man's cycle and they're cycling all the way home. And the mummy is making jalebi. Mummy gives jalebi to the kid. Kid is very happy. Papa says, घर छोड़ के जाना है. घर छोड़ के तो जाना है, लेकिन 10-20 साल बाद. Right? Apparently this ad ran. And a couple of months later, there was some newspaper report in Punjab Kesari or somewhere that 3 kids were spotted in some bus stand saying they're running away from home because the mummy is not making jalebi.
Jalebi. Which brand was this?
Dhara.
Dhara oil.
Okay,
Correct,
Dhara,
yes.
cooking oil.
Dhara
So this news went up to, the agency, and the team went to Dr. Kurian and said, Dr. Kurian, this news has come in the paper. What do we do? So Dr. Kurian said, keep running the ad. The ad is working.
This is the thing. This is the thing.
That's a sign of a great client, right? It's sense of humor. Yeah, run the ad. It's working.
So we used to have this thing which say, a client will get what advertising he deserves.
Absolutely. I tell my clients all the time, you will get the advertising you deserve.
Yeah.
Like you hire the best agency. If you chew them up, they will produce lousy ads.
Lousy ads.
You hire the lousiest agency, you make them fly, you'll produce great ads.
Great ads.
Right? So it's all, every client gets the advertising he or she deserves. So, Indian advertising has had these legendary clients who've been lovely. And we also had our share of lousy clients.
Oh, we've had a lot of lousy. I quit advertising because of that. I couldn't deal with it anymore. But, we spoke about English, we spoke about Hindi, we spoke about Hinglish. But our country has some 500 languages. So when you're appealing, also culturally, we are different. Our habits, cooking habits are different, clothes are different. How do you straddle this? And your brand is an all India brand.
Yeah.
Say, cooking oil, for example. I know if you're in the East, you will have more mustard oil, or if you're in Punjab, more mustard oil. You go down south, it's other oils. But you're selling a brand, whether it is Dhara or Saffola or whatever. How do you sort of cross the barrier of language, cultural differences in advertising?
See, in the good old days, we used to find some kind of a common meter which will work across the country. So ads are tested, right? If you remember, you used to have the language department which used to write language lines they used to write. I still remember one of the best language lines was, the English line was, something special's coming your way. Have you cherry blossomed your shoe today? And I think Balwant Tandon Lintas wrote the line in Hindi, which is Chalte Chalte Kismat Chamke, cherry blossom.
Yeah. Superbly translated, yeah. I wouldn't call it a translation.
Yeah, it's not translation, it's transcreation. We used to call it transcreation. So we used to have these in different languages. And so what you do is, you do the advertising, you create the advertising for, let's say, Heartland, Hindi Heartland, and you check if it works in Tamil Nadu and Kerala. If it doesn't work, you create new stuff for Tamil Nadu, Kerala. Right? So because I think the days have come where these markets have become big enough for you, and they are media isolatable. There is Tamil television, there is Malayalam television. You can do ads with Mammootty and Vijay and run it. So that's what many big brands are doing. But otherwise, you need to find a common ground. You cannot take something wrong and run it in different parts of the country, which is why one has to research.
Yeah, research.
Yeah, absolutely.
And emotion is a common ground the normal maternal instincts or paternal instincts or brotherly friendships, love, romance is common
It works.
in every part of the world.
It works everywhere. The two campaigns which I personally worked on, which I'm very proud of, is, and in some way probably I contributed to their success. One was Indica, the launch of Indica, where no one gave Tata Motors a chance of succeeding against a Japanese company called Maruti Suzuki. Right? We were handling Tata Indica launch, and the client listened to everything we said. We said we'll take on a very aggressive stance, and we called this more car per car. And one of the most provocative headlines was 50cc moped, 100cc mobike, 800cc car. Now you can ask for more. Tata Indica. So it was a great campaign. It did brilliantly well. People gave Indica no chance of success. It got a great booking. Then it stumbled. Then we did a revival with the Indica V2, which I think Kunal did a fabulous, V2 film, where he used what we call some Japanese drums, some Kodo drums or something. Very interesting stuff. So that, in a sense, I think, it was Ratan Tata's vision, but the way he supported the team very fully, it kind of brought some pride back into Indian manufacturing, that we can actually make a product which can compete with the Americans and the Japanese and stand on its own. And the Koreans that come in a big way, right, can stand up and fight these Koreans, right? So I'm very proud of what we did for Tata Indica and later what we did for Tata Indigo. The other brand, which I'm very proud of what I did, was for a brand of Indian soap called Santoor. So when I started working on Santoor in 1994...
ITC, right?
Santoor is Wipro.
Wipro, sorry.
So Santoor was probably 1/5 the size of Lux, right? And we had done this, aapki twacha se aapki umar ka pata nahi chalta, and there was a little mummy coming and
correct,
thing happening. And at that time when I took over the brand, the client was not very sure this campaign can continue, does it have legs? Fortunately, we cracked something. We created a new ad, which worked, and I kept every year, we used to create a new story. And if you look at Santoor advertising over 20 years, it is the story of the progress of the Indian woman. From a pretty woman in a wedding, to a woman who's playing games with a child, to a woman who's a television anchor, to a woman who's a singer, right? The progress of Indian woman was captured in Santoor, and lo and behold, in 2018, Santoor became a bigger brand than Lux. Now, when I started working in 1994, if you had told me that in 20 years Santoor will overtake Lux, I would have said no chance.
Never.
But it did overtake Lux.
And it's the same campaign, literally running all these years.
Same campaign.
The concept is the same.
Yeah, if I think I remember when marketing were taking over saying, what have you guys done? You've done nothing. I said, no, we've done everything. Which is, we have made the woman change. So it looks like the same campaign to you, but it's a very different campaign. Right? Every time, I remember A.G. Krishnamurthy, founder of Mudra, writing about it, saying every time Santoor is great because it's the same campaign, but every time they come with a new rendition, they add some new layer to it. And therefore it looks old, but it also looks new. That's the beauty of brand building, right? What Piyush is doing with Fevicol.
Correct.
It's the same old thing, but every time it's a new interpretation, right? You got to, like what Rahul is doing with Amul, it's a new interpretation. Same old thing, you need to interpret it. You need to interpret it newly. A good ad man, you create you have a great idea, you create a great campaign, and you fight with the client so that he doesn't change it. Right? So a lot of my gray hair is because you fought with clients saying, look, please don't change it. Please don't change it. Right? The other ad, which kind of reflected the mood of the generation, I think is Airtel, Har Friend Zaruri Hota Hai campaign.
Correct.
Just when everyone said jingles don't work in India, days of jingles are over, out comes Agnello with this wonderful ad, right? Saying, Har friend zaruri hota hai. There's a friend from whom you borrow money, friend whom you lend money. That's India, right? It's so quintessentially Indian ethos. If you go back, of course, brands like, Hamara Bajaj stood for this whole thing about pride in the nation, blah, blah, blah. So Har friend zaruri hota hai stands for this. And of course, in recent times, brands are trying to take very nuanced stories, which is very good. For example, Tanishq did that ad with a woman getting married again, right? And
yes,
it told a wonderful story. It's a jewelry story, but it's also a story of New India. Or, if you have seen Vicks Vapor Rub, did a wonderful ad with this transgender woman adopting a child. Now that's based on a real story. They called Gauri Sawant, who adopted a child, and in fact, her story has been told in a series called Tali, directed by Ravi Jadhav.
Yeah.
Right. So played by Shushmita Sen actually acts in that series. So brands are trying to find and tell interesting. There is this very nice Brooke Bond film where there is a train compartment where there's a lady, slightly strict-looking old lady, and this young man with a scruffy beard who's got a flask and he's pouring tea.
Yes, I've seen the ad. Yeah.
And then he offers it to the guy sitting across who's blind. And the guy takes it, and this old lady tells him, how can you take a cup of tea from a stranger? Don't. So the blind man says, I recognize people through the flavor. And he takes the tea and drinks it. And then the old lady also takes the tea and drinks it.
Yeah. See, you're right. This ad does talk about our current situation, which is there is a bit of racism, classism, prejudices, etc., etc. No?
Yeah, absolutely. And I admire these brands. Brands like, Surf did that, little boy and a girl, someone throwing color on this little boy who's trying to go to the mosque and this girl protects him.
Yeah.
What a lovely story.
Yeah.
I hope and pray that more and more brands try and do these kind of stories. That's what is needed the day of, today.
So in a way, we've come a full circle, as in when we were growing up, most of the ad films that you saw were in cinema halls where you could see 1 minute, 1.5 minute, 2 minute films which would run before the main feature. Then came the era of 30 seconds and we need 10-second version, 30-second version, 20-second version, 15-second version, to now where there is a medium because of the digital explosion where you can again run longer version films.
Yeah.
Long storytelling films.
Yeah, you can run, this whole business in every brand today is a concept of what is called content marketing. So if you're a brand, you need to create content. The content cannot only be 15 seconds. Content can be a long form article. Content can be 2-minute film. Like, for example, during the pandemic, Amul had this live show where I think they've till date uploaded something like 8,000 recipe ideas, which are all made by their consumers. Each probably 20-30 minutes.
Yeah.
It's got several million views. So there is a space for everything. That's what's the beauty of this digital era. Why should it be only be 5-second, 10-second reels on Insta?
Absolutely.
You can think of a 1-minute film. You can, but the brands have to believe in that. Brands have to I admire, IDFC First for having, sponsors.
Doing this long format stuff. Yes,
it's great stuff. I mean, we need more brands like this who are saying, look, we need to build long form content. We need to, this engaging content, right, which will stay with the consumer, right? That's what we need. We need more of these to go forward with.
On that note, positive note, if I may say so, and two things. One is that I think we are living in good times again, once again, and two is that memorability is a big thing. And brands, look at the number of brands that we've just rattled off from our memory, from your working years as well as your earlier years. And some brands that will always remain in our minds, however many years, even if they don't exist anymore, a lot of them. But it's always exciting discussing.
I keep saying the world of marketing and advertising is really wonderful. I'm proud to have been part of this world. My little tribute to this world was writing my book, New Noodles, 50 Years of Advertising, and my latest book.
And you got a new book coming up.
Yeah, my latest book is it's called Marketing Mixology, which has got 4 different topics I've covered in the book. Again, the objective is clear. The objective is to get the young people to get excited about marketing. Why should everyone be only in coding? Why can't smart, young, bright people come into marketing and advertising? So hopefully some of them will listen to our show and pick marketing and advertising as a career option.
I don't even know what is coding. So, but thank you very much. I think it's been an exciting conversation. We've touched upon such wonderful memories, if I may call them that. And always a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you, Kunal, for having me on your show. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Well, that was a really, really, how do I say, it was an invigorating, exciting and emotional conversation full of memories and full of anecdotes. Catch us next week. Join us on the same show, which is called A Century of Stories India, brought to you by IDFC First Bank. Always you first.
IVM